Hi everyone and Assalamualaikum. We are from Group 3 and we will present about legal protection for safeguarding halal consumer. So, the presenters of this video is, the first one is AFIQAH binti MORSIDI, NURUL AINA FATIHAH binti LOKMANOLHAKIM, and lastly is NURMIRZA IWANI binti HERMAN. For the contents in this topic consists of introduction, literature review, objectives, finding and discussion, and the last one is conclusion. First, we go to the introduction. Halal can be defined as everything that is halal and permissible under Islamic law. Meanwhile, the term consumerism in Islam generally defined as a person who wants to obtain goods or services to fulfill all their desire and needs, as well as to obtain the right purpose in accordance with Islamic law. Based on the views, Collins Legal Dictionary 2017, consumer protection refers to a form of protection of consumer right to protect them from all forms of unfair trade under design laws and policies. So, there are historical facts about consumer protection. The consumer rights protection movement began in England in 19th century and is extended to the United States, in which there was a monopoly in the provision of service and the sales of commodities as a response to the rise of capitalism. The emergence of consumer association began in Denmark in 1947 and expanded in the United Kingdom in 1955 because the influence of the development of consumer protection in Europe arrived later. In this regard, it served as a center to the public to easily obtain information on sustainable and safe choice of goods and services with the aim that the right of individual and collective consumer will be guaranteed.
Literature review regarding consumer protection of halal products in Malaysia. In this article, focus on the relationship between halal and consumerism, halal laws related to consumerism protection, and finally, it discussed issues related to the misuse of the halal logo entitled Consumer Protection of Halal Products in Malaysia by Muhammad Mahyiddin, 2013. Among the issues related to the misuse of the halal logo is a company that has obtained a halal certificate but their certificate has expired and needs renewal. However, the biggest concern of the authority is when a manufacturer who has obtained a halal certificate but found banned substance in their products such as porcine DNA. Following the above issues, this article also discusses some halal laws and consumer protection that has been established in Malaysia to protect consumer rights. Firstly, the Trade Description Act 2011, Trade Description, Definition of Halal, Order 2011, and Trade Description, Certification and Marking of Halal, Order 2011, state the definition of halal and halal food preparation in accordance to the Sharia law together with the offences of falsification of raw materials and halal documentation enforcement by the Ministry of Domestic Trade, Cooperative and Consumerism. Second, the Food Act 1983 and Food Regulation 1985 regarding labeling, hygienic practice and food safety enforced by the Ministry of Health. Third, the Animal Act 1953, Revision 2006, Abattoir Privatization Act 1993, and Animals Rule 1962, Animals Importation Order 1962 regarding animals rearing and disease controlled by Department of Veterinary Service, DVS. Fourth, the Customs Act 1967, Customs Prohibition of Import Order 1998 regarding the import of halal meat by the Royal Malaysian Custom. 5. The Sharia Criminal Offences Federal Territories Act 1997, Labeling of Halal Food by the State Islamic Department. And lastly, the Local Government Act 1976 and Local Authorities by Laws and Trademarks Act 1976 by MDTCC. Next, an analysis of legal protection of halal and toyib food consumer in court judgment. According to the article, an analysis of legal protection of halal and toyib food consumer in court judgment by IWANI 2018, based on the author's study by the review of Dr. Margaret Chan, who is the Director General of the World Health Organization, states that safety that is often overlooked and not given more attention is food safety. Discussions related to the analysis of court decision in relation to food crimes have been reviewed by the authors. It was found that there was a discrepancy between the claim by the public prosecutor and the court decisions related to the maximum criminal charge. Among them is a minimum verdict for the criminal offense of food additives crime, a sentence of 3 months in prison and no fines. Standard production and distribution of food was unsafety, punishable by 23 days in prison and no fines. The production and distribution of unlabeled food, not punishable by the imprisonment and only pay or fine of 4 billion rupiah. The label unlawful, sentenced to 15 days in prison and no fines. The production and distribution of halal status food will result in imprisonment of 30 months and no fines. Meanwhile, referring to the maximum verdict, the criminal offense of food additive crime will be punishable by imprisonment for 1 year and a fine of 50 billion rupiah. Standard productions and distribution of food whose unsafety will be sentenced to 8 months in prison and a fine of 10 billion rupiah. The production and distribution of unlabeled food will be punishable by 4 months in prison and a fine of 50 billion rupiah. The label unlawful will face up to 6 months in prison and no fines. The production and distribution of halal status food will be punishable for 30 months in prison and no fines. As such, the authors state that the enforcement of these food acts still has loopholes in its implementation because the minimum and maximum penalty rates imposed on defaulting producers are very light and usually decision made by the court was the minimum penalty. Literature review: the halal green consumerism concept in Al-Quran and analysis through article. The halal green consumerism concept in Al-Quran and analysis by Muhammad and Hanafi 2018. Halal green consumerism is defined as consumers who use products that have halal status and stay away from haram status. As a result of the author's research, there are 2 principles of halal green consumerism. Among them, the main basic principle of halal green consumerism is to lead the things that are beneficial and welfare to the consumer. This is because Muslims are commanded by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to always obtain benefits and guarantee welfare in every matters in addition to prioritizing everything that is done to get His pleasure. Next, practice the principle of moderation. Islam does not prevent His people from spending. However, the principle of moderation is defined as moderation and refraining from solely following the instinctual inclination, nafs, in spending, thus leading to wastage. Furthermore, there are also 2 halal green consumerism ethics. The first is the products and services must be halal and of good quality. Goods and services not only have halal status and do not have haram elements and stay away from things that are shubhah, but also need to be of quality so that the needs and desire of consumer can be met. Second, balance. So balance means in line with one's approach in the world and in the hereafter. It is clear that halal green consumerism is very beneficial to its consumers and ensure that their lives are always in the line with Islam.
According to an article entitled Halal Labeling Packaging of Food Product, Circulation Consumer Protection by Widyarti 2021, this article focuses on the importance of halal labeling on packaging in ensuring customers' right to every food product acquired from the producer. Consumer rights laws are relatively weak, which has resulted in a lack of legal awareness of halal label packaging among consumers. For example, consumers who have suffered a loss do not have an easy way to file a complaint because consumer lack of understanding to file the complaint. Besides, this article also explained about the law under Indonesian law on consumer protection under Article 8 against traders who already have a halal certificate for the product they produce and sell. Among them are traders who are not allowed to trade and produce goods or services, such as, first, does not follow the rules that have been set and the provision of laws and regulation. Second is the net, weight, and the calculation amount indicate on the item's packaging label do not match. Third is the size, measure, scale, and amount in the count do not match the actual size. Next is the product conditioned guarantees, characteristic or efficacy are not met as described on the items or services label. And then a particular quality, level, composition, processing, style, method, or use state on the product services label are failed to be made, and then failure to follow through on a promise stated in the label, ethics, advertising, the sale of the product and services, and then do not include an expiration date or a best use period on the label package. Then non-compliance with halal production requirement as mentioned in the halal statement on the label. So as a trader who have a halal certificate, they must comply with the law regarding product packaging so that consumer rights will be guaranteed. Next, according to an article entitled Consumer Rights, Co-optation of the Contemporary Consumer Movement by Larsen and Lawson 2013, this article focuses on the advancement of consumer rights as well as the relationship between the contemporary consumer movements. The advancement of consumer rights is a breakdown of the modern consumer movements. So, consumer protection against various offenses lead to the success of the contemporary consumer social movement. With the existence of the consumer rights can help to balance all forms of market justice to some extent, which is also one of the proof of the contemporary consumer movement successes. Aside from that, the concept of democracy is necessary as a safeguard in the event of market failure, since as it can safeguard consumer sovereignty. So, these consumer rights play a role in reforming the market, even if does not lead to change to a more responsible economy. Next, based on an article named Consumer Protection of Halal Meat under Islamic Law and Indonesian Regulation by Rostemi 2015, a slaughterhouse is a custom-built structure that used as an animal slaughterhouse for slaughter activities in order to meet the needs of the community. In Indonesia, the slaughterhouse must fulfill the criteria of safety, healthy, whole, and halal because it is the first principle that must be followed when producing halal meat. In this situation, the government's roles in controlling the slaughterhouse is critical in ensuring that ante-mortem, which is before the death of animal, and post-mortem, which is after the death of animal, procedures are carried out in accordance with consumer protection principles, as well as halal meat quality and slaughter integrity are maintained. In addition, audit and halal advocacy initiative on imported meat are being used to provide legal certainty for community protection of slaughterhouse. In this regard, by involving stakeholders widely, it can help the country to provide protection to the society. Thus, it is recommended that slaughterhouse quality should be improved and halal advocacy and audit institution should be established in order to protect a Muslim who consume halal meat.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NURMIRZA IWANI, and for today I will present about the next literature review. So the next article is entitled The Consumer Protection Through Healthy and Halal Product Legislation for Small-Scale Business. So this article focuses on to determine whether or not the regulation of halal product collateral is effective, and to describe what requirements are required by the law for effective regulation of halal product guarantees. The findings of this study and review were first received. The halal product guarantee law has not been successful to date, and there are still many challenges that BPJPH faces in achieving the Act's objectives. The transmission of information obtained by business entities in the form of rules relating to halal obligations must be subject to strict restrictions in order to be successful. Next article entitled The Effectiveness of the Implementation of Halal Product Guarantee Act to Provide the Consumer Protection. So this article focuses on to know the regulation on halal and healthy guarantee of Indonesian snacks and drinks that are loved by all the levels of society in Indonesia and are often sold by the street vendors in the various places. The realization of the consumer protection requires good coordination between the government, business actors, and the community as the consumers. So the need for the halal and healthy products is not only for the Muslims communities but also for the non-Muslim communities, because halal products are certainly guaranteed of the product's hygiene and safety. The next article entitled The Effect of Consumers' Interest, Information Access, and Spending Willingness on Halal Products Trustworthiness. So this article focuses on examining the consumers' interest in the halal items, their accessibility to halal product information, and their desire to spend the money on halal items influence their opinion of halal certification reliability. The amount of the education plays a role in evaluating the trustworthiness. Aside from the trustworthy, the aspect of trademark integrity and halal's authenticity must as well be considered in future research concerning to protect the halal consumer.
Research objective. First, to study the consumer protection based on Sharia perspective. Second, to examine the laws relating to halal food products consumer protection. Third, to analyze the issue related halal consumer protection and way to resolve.
Next is the consumer protection based on Sharia perspective. As we know, the halal element plays a vital role in protecting consumer rights. So, there are some consumer rights that need to be emphasized based on the Sharia perspective. First is the right to get quality and clean food, which means halalan tayyiban. In the Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala commands Muslims to eat food that is pure and halal and to stay away from following the orders or steps of the devil, as Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 168, which means, O mankind, eat from whatever is on the earth that is lawful and good, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. So, based on this verse, the term tayyib refers to clean, pure, quality, and does not contain the element of najis and things that are forbidden to be eaten by Muslim. So, in this regard, Muslim consumer should have the right to obtain quality and halal food in fulfillment of the command Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, as it has been described in the Quran. So, product manufacturer must also ensure that food produced is in the line with the principle emphasized in Islam, namely halal and tayyib. For example, the parties involved in the process of preparing food and beverage, from the preparation of raw materials to the consumer, should comply with all the requirements of Sharia law. Thus, the rights of consumer are always protected. Second is manufacturers should produce the best product possible for their customers. In Islam, manufacturer must follow the principles of halal and tayyib rather than focusing solely on profit. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Surely God loves when any of you does an endeavor that he seeks to perfect it." So, based on the hadith, the word itqan or ihtiyar means that the manufacturer must ensure that all materials used are in accordance with the Sharia law. So all manufacturers' goods must be in a good condition and do not contain substances prohibited by Islamic law, such as harmful substances. In this regard, sellers are prohibited from abusing the halal logo by using it on items that include non-halal ingredients. Third is the right of the consumer to acquire product information. A consumer should have the right to know and choose the best quality of their desired product. Consumer must know some important aspect of the goods that they require, for example, expiration date, price of items, and ingredient contents in the products. Besides, the customer should know and be exposed to how to use the product properly in a particular situation. So, all the information related to the product packaging must be disclosed by the seller or manufacturer. In addition, the seller or manufacturer must be honest and responsible when providing information about the product they offer, and they should not provide misleading and unclear information related to the product. Thus, the information must be provided in great detail, clearly and accurately. And last, the right to exchange of goods due to the occurrence of defects, which is here aib, and to get compensation in the event of fraud by the seller. Islam protects consumers by giving the right to hear in sale and purchase transaction and exchanging damaged goods sold by the seller with the aim of safeguarding the welfare of the contracting party. In this regard, here AIP refers to the buyer's right to either continue or terminate the sales and purchase agreement if he finds that there are defect or damage to the goods he purchased while the buyer did not know it during the transaction. For example, buying goods online such as at Shopee, Lazada, and others, in which the seller does not state there is damage to an item, and when the buyer receives the item and he finds there is damage to the item, then the buyer has the right to get here, where the consumer is entitled to seek compensation from the seller. Therefore, here can fully protect the rights of consumer in sales and purchase transaction.
The law relating to halal food product consumer protection. In this subtopic, we are focusing the acts that are related to halal food products consumer protection. Firstly, Malaysian Standard MS 1500-2009. These standards established by the Department of Standard Malaysia, the national standard and accreditation body of Malaysia. These standards cover all aspects of hygiene, processing, and preparation of food in the line with halal status. This standard also in accordance with global such as ISO 9000, Codex Alimentarius, and Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. Consequently, it is clear that the Malaysian government emphasizes halal food producer producing quality and safe food for consumers. Second, trade description, certification and marking of halal. Order 2011. JAKIM and MAIN are the bodies in each state that are in charge of recognizing halal certified food goods and services as stated in Article 4 of the Trade Description, Certification and Marketing of Halal, Order 2011. Furthermore, food, goods or services cannot be certified halal until the following conditions are met. First, obtain approval from the relevant bodies, namely JAKIM or MAIN, and have a halal logo that have been approved by JAKIM or MAIN. Furthermore, according to the Article 5 of the order, if the imported food or good have halal status, the halal status of the food or goods must obtain recognition from a foreign halal certification body that have been recognized by JAKIM, and the name of the foreign halal certification body must be marked on the food or goods. As a result, with reference to Article 8 of the orders, anyone who fails to comply with the order and is convicted will receive a fine not exceeding 100,000 or not exceeding 5 years imprisonment or both. Meanwhile, the penalty imposed for the body corporate does not exceed 250,000 ringgit Malaysia. Number 3, Food Act 1983 acts and laws that play an important role in protecting and guaranteeing consumers that all food consumed by consumer is safe and has no elements that could harm the health of consumer are the Food Act 1983 and the Food Regulation 1985 under Ministry of Health. According to the Section 13, number 1, the supply and sale of food that pose a risk to consumer is prohibition. Furthermore, Section number 16 also states that all process of preparing, packaging, labeling, selling the wrong food, causing confusion and leading to the element of fraud in terms of character, value, quality, safety, and so on are prohibited. Number 4, Food Regulation 1985. All procedures related to sampling, labeling, packaging, manufacturing, and others are described in the Food Regulation 1985. In addition, food labeling should ensure that there is an emphasis on the use of language, shape, size, and color of letters, date of manufacture or expiration, and others. Number 5, Food Hygiene Regulation 2009 emphasizes on the level of food hygiene, which also include food preparation done by food premises and the use of preservation, packaging, way of storing, delivering, distribution, or selling food is implemented by factories, food truck, and restaurant. The regulation also outline the procedure for labeling, processing, and rearranging food. Number 6, Consumer Protection Act 1999. The Consumer Protection Act 1999 was established on 15 November 1999, which was to ensure that the rights of consumers in the use of a product are guaranteed and in line with their need and desire. As such, referring to Section 34, the Act implicitly guarantees that all supply of goods and consumers must be parallel to the proclaims. For example, if a food manufacturer proclaims that their food is halal, the halal logo recognition by JAKIM must label on the food packaging. Meanwhile, for import food that is halal, it must have halal logo by foreign certification bodies that have been recognized by JAKIM on the food packaging label. It is clear that the warranty implemented in Section 34 can be used as a prohibition on the activity of selling or supplying counterfeit halal products because forgery of halal status is the same as the offense of violating the Product Compliance Act has been declared. And lastly, number 7, Animals Act 1953, revised 2006. The Abattoir Privatization Act 1993 empowers the Ministry of Health and Department of Veterinary Service of the Ministry of Agriculture and Agro-based industry monitor the slaughter process carried out by the slaughterhouse. The protocol for the preparation of halal animal slaughter is not directly mentioned in this act. However, JAKIM has issued that halal protocol for the halal meat and poultry production and the process of applying for halal certification for import meat is also explained in this protocol. As an outcome of the establishment of this food-related law, consumers can be guaranteed and protected from manufacturers who mismanage halal products in terms of food content, quality, safety, and all other issues related to halal food product status.
Next is the consumer protection issues. The first issues regarding to the fake halal logo. According to the Ministry of Domestic Trade, Cooperative and Consumerism, there are 6 fake halal logos in the market and resemble the legitimate JAKIM logo. One of the issues is the carton meat. According to Minister of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs, a warehouse in Senan Johor has been used to acquire frozen meat from overseas before repackaging it, along with the fake halal logo. This happened because the lack of knowledge and information of the consumer about the halal logo. To address this problem, JAKIM and other relevant organizations must certainly upskill the consumers via television, radio, media platforms, and other means of the communications. All of these efforts have the potential to raise the consumer awareness and the knowledge of the halal logo. Next issue is the misuse of halal certification. For the evidence, the Perak Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry took the action over 2 food outlets on January 18 for having the outdated halal certification, according to Bernama. Section 16 Clause 1 of the Trade Description Act 2011 will be used to investigate these cases. This could be due to some manufacturers not realizing their halal certification has expired or refusing to renew it. The halal certificate will be only valid for 2 years and it is challenging for both of them to renew the halal certificate on a regular basis because it costs time and money. To address this issue, the consumer must be aware of the significance of implementing the halal certification on the premise where their products are manufactured to ensure that they are halal. The halal certificate not only ensures that what Muslims drink or eat is compliant with the Sharia laws, but it also motivates manufacturers to follow the halal guidelines. The next issue is regarding to the halal packaging. To aid the farming and cutting process in the case of the production of metal cans, usually oil will be used. Therefore, the halal status of the oil used is doubtful, as this oil can come from animals whose halal status is in doubt. Another example is when putting food in containers or plastic, the workers will use disposable gloves to ensure the cleanliness of the food products is maintained. However, the original source of gloves is sometimes questionable. This is because some of the gloves are made of animal materials which causes to uncertain halal status. This happened due to the lack of understanding of workers regarding the halal issues during the preparation and the packaging process. Therefore, in order to solve these issues, halal food manufacturing should be handled by a specialized and committed team of employees. Furthermore, this will provide the consumer increased confidence and protect the consumer's trust in the halal food products' halal integrity. For the conclusion, this paper summarized the consumer issues in regard to the halal concept, relying on a review of the existing literature and studies by past researchers. The problems concerning halal consumption are becoming more complicated as the consumer expectation rise in tandem with the increased awareness of food safety and equality concerns. As a result, in order to minimize misunderstanding of issues relating to the halal industry, the government and the public in general must collaborate with the consumer special interests, for example, the Malaysian Muslim Consumers Association. Considering the problems and issues that consumers face, the halal products are still perceived to be a superior option because they represent safety and the product quality. Given the multiplicity of cultures, the halal concerns that perplex consumers must be dealt with caution since this may cause public concern. Prior to implementing any choice linked to the halal problem, comprehensive research should be conducted. This is critical in terms of maintaining the society's peace and tolerance. The halal business has gone in the lockstep with the majority of Muslims. In the light of the halal industry, the capabilities in the locally as well as globally, economic and environment, continued and robust efforts are required to ensure the halal industry's advancement.